Sippers, hey tea sippers, hey tea sippers. Happy Sunday, happy Sunday, happy Sunday. Oh my goodness. I was trying to stall because I have something that's being delivered in this. It kept changing the time, and before we get off into some of the stuff that's going on and what we need to be reminded of and what's coming in the unforeseen future and some things that I know y'all gonna wait to see me uh, of God's promises that must be uh, fulfilled. Some of us may know, and some of us may not know, and some of us may have been manipulated, and we are finding that a lot of the gospel, or what we thought was the truth, we're finding out that not everything is the truth, but the truth gonna set us free. Yes, indeed. One thing is for sure, he can't come back. He will not come back until the truth goes out. Right? So we are going to, we're going to listen to this because this just came out. Tisa talking about Diddy and Trump, and then we going to jump in. Trump, what you got, Diddy? You got him jumping through hoops. Man, is this the year of oh, Lord? Now I did say today's the Lord's Day. I need to watch what I say. Because I was going to say, is this the year and time of punk on the go out? I mean, what? But I've been trying to tell people that y'all was teammates in this trafficking stuff. Trump, you wanted the rappers. You liked the rappers because they broke the law. They made money and they did a lot of illegal shit. So you needed some people to come in up under you and join this trafficking and this sex ring and all of this dirty Diana, yeah, stealing and dealing and stuff. And you brought him in. He tried to make it his own. Sure enough, he did. He tried to do it a little different. He didn't want it to look like the good old white boys, what they was doing, because in some parts of it, you thought it was just God awful, some of the shit that Trump was doing. Yeah. And when you found out that he was about to try to eliminate the black people, and what his scheme and scam, and that there was only going to be a select few that he was going to use, as a face. And in the end, that mean that you was going to backdoor them folk. You wanted him to be that Uncle Tom. You wanted him, Jay-Z, them, to be the face of the people, of the back in the making America great again when they was going over to foreign countries, stealing people and stealing land and, putting them to work for free labor. And they're, for the ones who don't know or don't remember or don't want to believe that they use black people to lure black people, they always have to have a token. Always got to have a copper penny up in the bag. AunTeaFee, did you just call a copper penny? Yeah, the one who got the least out of it. It always got to be a Judas. Yeah, yeah. He was a copper penny. Yeah. You know they don't like fooling with pennies. I mean they add up a little, but they really don't like pennies. Yeah, they throw them things away, flip them in the wishing well. Yeah, that's how Trump and his organization was looking at the few tokens. Yeah, they'll chomp them in the wishing well. Yeah, the little copper pennies. Yeah, that's they brown. Out of all the coins, the least valued ones is the color of the feet of Jesus. Ooh, AunTeaFee. I'm just saying. But let's carry on. I'm still trying to wait for this package. So let's see what Tisa tells Lord. We're going to start out laughing because you know she is funny. Bark like you want it. So he's saying bow down and bark. Yeah. So he training. If you want to get out, get your weight up with your coins, with your money. But before I accept your money, yeah, I'm gonna need you to bark like a dog. Let's go. Let's go, T. So what you done found out, girl?
They said Trump Diddy was sitting in his jail cell, his little feet swinging, swinging. Hey, what's up, guys? How y'all doing today? Well, baby, if
Shout out
your
to
name is Sean
Tisa.
Diddy Combs, you have a $300 million decision to make. Trump has played you again. Forget about the long weekend. They said Trump Diddy was sitting in his jail cell, his little feet swinging, swinging, waiting for the bailiff to call him like he was on the Green Mile, but this time he ain't gonna have to walk to the big chair. Y'all, they said Diddy was waiting all weekend, manifesting Trump letting him out of jail. And we are how many hours away from Monday? Or less than, what, 15 hours
Ooh, I know
away
Harvey
from Monday,
Levin
baby. The
them
holiday
saying,
weekend is
God
over.
dang, they playing
Diddy,
with
you are
us.
staying in jail. But sources are saying this is part of Trump's diabolical scheme to break and humiliate Diddy. But Diddy does have a $300 million question that he can answer that could be the key to him getting out of jail. Unfortunately for Diddy, he really has to think, is $300 million worth your future, your kids' future, and every penny you're gonna make? And guess what? The Arab states have stepped in, and it doesn't look like that is happening. Y'all, let's get into this because we have so much
Diddy
to
over there
talk about.
barking.
First, for all the people last weekend, this weekend, that said, Diddy getting out of jail. All right, this feels almost illegal to know, but our windows were demon is still sitting there. Now, what was the hope
King
that was
Demon.
said? They thought that they were getting closer and closer to the Trump pardon. Unfortunately, the lobbyists that you pay for to get in front of Trump to get a pardon, they have been making millions, and they have not been giving Diddy anything in return. See, here's the problem, okay? Diddy right now is not offering enough money to the people that can move things to actually get this thing going. Trump just pardoned the guy that was behind the crypto, Binance, that the Trump family just got a windfall off of. They are moving into big money, hundreds of millions, billions. Every leader in the world is trying to get something out of Trump, trying to offer. Every dictator, every strongman, every whatever organization, say what you want, people are willing to put up money to get on the agenda or at least get the attention of the president of the United States. Now, here's the thing, right? Remember when Trump said something really, really, really important? He said, I'll think about it. But to be honest, he said a lot of bad things about me. I don't know. They are saying that why Trump keeps bringing that up is because he wants complete and utter fealty from Diddy. He doesn't want Diddy to be able to just throw him money. And we'll talk about how much it's supposed to be. It's rumored
A
to be
lot.
around $300 million. They're saying Diddy is begging everyone, ex-girlfriends, ex-billionaire godparents to his kids. He is begging everybody he can for help.
He
But
not
see,
gonna be
Trump
able to
is in
pay
a
him
position
back.
to say now to be like, yeah, well, the people around Trump that are facilitating the pardon, it's going to have to be 300 million plus something of value. What could that value be? Well, Diddy has the promise to bring the community. Now, come on, we already know Diddy will sell his mama out to get out of jail. At least that's what I feel. These are all my feelings. But they are saying that Trump is telling Diddy, you're going to have to come up with something. And we're not even talking about money. Something to make it worth his time. The only thing he could offer is the community on the silver platter. Now, here's the kicker. He has hinted in the past. I think Mark Garagos said, yeah, Diddy hinted that, if he was going to be let out, he understands what the president is going through now. And if he was going to be let out, he hinted he would be Republican or would kind of be a tool for the Republican Party. To which Trump is like, boy, I got Lil Wayne and whoever else I want. I don't need you up here on the town because we saw your last album figures. It was a flop, right?
Okay.
But even more.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's move on. Hey, Lisa. Oh, this person who is delivering is moving slow. He must be new. Oh, wait a minute. Turning Point USA. Oh, I need to send this to myself. Hold on.
Devious, diabolical, if you will, is also the terms that Trump wants. Even if Diddy is promising to be a tool, he wants Diddy to basically give up every penny he has. Okay. He also wants him in public through his media team, through press releases, to actually apologize to Trump. Apologize to Trump. That's what the sources are saying. Eat humble pie and start singing Trump's praises to prove one, that he has completely humbled himself and
Lisa,
humiliated himself.
Lisa,
to
I've
make up for
already
the way he tried
said
to
shout out
humiliate-
to Tisa Tales, so you don't have to blast her name. Okay, don't do that. I've already said shout out to Tisa Tales. Okay. Okay, precious. Yeah, I already said it.
Trump back then, but also too to show that if you do this and you do say, oh, well, we're now on, the MAGA crowd, that you can actually bring people with you. Or if the black community won't be looking at Diddy like, have you lost your ever? Of course you lost your ever mind. Anyway,
Hey, Kane Life, thank you. 10 months in.
Go have some freak offs at the Republican National Convention. Have fun, right? Now, why
Love to
is
see
this
that
all
star
coming
by
together?
your
Well, let's
name.
get back to that 300 million.
300
Remember that
million.
300 million I told you about? That is said to be the price in the ballpark that Diddy is going to have to come up with.
Okay, let's get to work, because, I get real irritated real quick nowadays. I ain't gonna even tell no tales. Let's get here. Let's get to our roots. Yeah. Let's get to the root of it. And when I be in other people's chat, Lisa, I don't ever see you putting AunTeaFee name on nothing. And half the shit these people be saying be repeat from me. But carry on. Okay, so y'all, what I was checking out is, I consistently want us to stay on point, especially with this Israel, Saudi, Gaza fighting over land, manipulating the truth, this fake Israel, all of that.
Come in. He signed up
Stay
for the
on
course.
top of it. So we're going to touch bases on the Israelites. We're going to go there. We're going to get off of Trump. So that way can't nobody try to shout out other people on the cool on other people's platforms. I know you know that's a no-no. I know you know that's a no-no. I ain't got not one Cash App, super sticker, gems, or nothing from you, but you shouting out something. Lisa, I'm not feeling you today. Come back another day. Yeah, you owe me an apology. Yeah. I'm so sick of it.
Ezekiel chapter 37.
So it's already active.
God promises to gather his people from a...
Yeah, let's go back. Let's check this out some. The Bible stories, the Black
What
Bible
if I told you
stories.
that the greatest deception in human history wasn't about money, wasn't about power, but was about identity itself? What if the very people singing spirituals in cotton fields, crying out to Moses and the promised land, were actually singing about their own bloodline, their own heritage, their own prophetic destiny? Today we're diving into scientific evidence, biblical prophecy, and historical truth that will shake the foundation of everything you thought you knew about who the chosen people really are. The DNA doesn't lie. Archaeological evidence doesn't lie.
DNA don't lie.
Ancient manuscripts hidden for centuries don't lie. But institutions, governments, and yes, even some religious organizations have been lying to us for generations. We're talking about Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68, where Moses prophesied that the children of Israel would be brought into Egypt again with ships, sold as bondmen and bondwomen, and no man would buy them. Think about that verse for a moment. What people in history were taken by ships into bondage? What people were sold and no nation came to their aid? If you're ready to have your worldview completely transformed, comment 77 right now. Because what we're about to reveal will challenge everything you've been taught about biblical identity, about race, about prophecy, and about the very nature of God's covenant with his chosen people. The scriptures paint a picture that's been whitewashed, literally and figuratively, for centuries. When John saw Jesus in Revelation chapter 1, verses 14 through 15, he described his hair as white like wool, his eyes as flames of fire, and his feet like fine brass, as if burned in a furnace. Now, when brass is heated to extreme temperatures in a furnace, what color does it become? It becomes dark, burnished, bronze-colored. This isn't European imagery, this is African imagery. In Song of Songs chapter 1 verse 5, we read these words directly from Scripture. I am black, but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. The Hebrew word here is shachar, meaning black or dark. This isn't metaphorical language about sin or spiritual darkness. This is a physical description of beauty and divine favor. Consider Moses, raised in Pharaoh's house in Egypt. How could a Hebrew child be raised among Egyptian royalty without detection if he looked fundamentally different from the Egyptians? The answer is simple. He didn't look different because the ancient Egyptians were a dark-skinned people, and so were the Hebrews. In Acts chapter 21, verse 38, Paul was mistaken for an Egyptian by Roman soldiers. Again, how is this possible unless Paul bore a physical resemblance to Egyptians? The Bible itself is set primarily in Africa and the Middle East. Egypt is mentioned over 400 times in Scripture. Cush and Ethiopia are referenced repeatedly. When Herod sought to kill the infant Jesus, where did the Holy Family flee for refuge? They went down into Egypt, into Africa, because they could blend in, because they belonged there ethnically and culturally. Simon of Cyrene, who carried the cross of Christ, was from Libya in North Africa. The Ethiopian eunuch in Acts chapter 8 was already worshipping the God of Israel before Philip explained Jesus to him. These weren't isolated incidents. These were part of a broader pattern of African peoples being central to biblical narrative. But here's where the story takes a prophetic turn that will leave you speechless. In 70 AD, when the Romans destroyed Jerusalem and the temple, what happened to the Hebrew survivors? Historical records show massive migrations southward into Africa. They didn't disappear. They didn't vanish into thin air. They moved deeper into the continent, settling in regions we now know as Nigeria, Ghana, Benin, and other West African territories. These communities maintained their customs, their circumcision practices, their Sabbath observance, their dietary restrictions. The Igbo people of Nigeria still circumcise on the 8th day, exactly as commanded in Leviticus. Many West African cultures have names invoking Yah, the sacred name of God. They kept feast days. They maintained oral traditions about coming from the East, from a place of slavery and exile. But then came 1492, and then came the ships. Deuteronomy 28:68 states, "And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you." This prophecy speaks of a return to the condition of Egypt, meaning slavery, but this time by ships. It speaks of being sold to enemies as slaves, and it says no man shall buy you, meaning no nation will come to your aid or purchase your freedom. The transatlantic slave trade took approximately 12.5 million Africans, primarily from West Africa, the very regions where Hebrew refugees had settled a millennium earlier. They were brought by ships into bondage.
This isn't just a burger, it's a Midwest masterpiece. Fresh beef, real Wisconsin cheddar, thick cut bacon, and creamy garlic.
Nation came to their aid. The prophecy was fulfilled with stunning precision. But here's where modern science confirms ancient prophecy in ways that will make your head spin. DNA research has identified a genetic marker called E1B1A, which geneticists have traced to ancient
E1B1A.
This haplogroup shows up in the highest concentrations in West Africa, particularly in Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, and Benin, the same regions where Hebrew refugees settled. The same regions most affected by the slave trade. Studies show that a significant percentage of African Americans carry this genetic marker. We're not talking about small percentages. We're talking about substantial genetic evidence linking African Americans to ancient Hebrew bloodlines. The science is backing up the prophecy. The DNA is confirming.
Do the
what
research,
scriptures
Emmanuel.
declared thousands of years ago. Now,
Emmanuel, if you want me to do research for you, hit my Cash App, Super Chat, Super Sticker, send some gems. Support the platform. If not, accept what I am providing or do your own research. Okay? Respectfully. You know, you can't expect for me to do the research, give it, provide it, and you know, you... Okay, well then leave. Then leave. Then why you here? If you think you know, then leave. Right? You need some help? Okay, bye-bye. Yeah. You just talking. Yeah. Just like they've been lying for years. Yeah, you lying now.
does this mean every single African American carries Hebrew DNA? Of course not.
You don't want the truth out.
Populations mix, genetics vary, and ancestry is complex. But nation will come to your aid or purchase your freedom. The transatlantic slave trade took approximately 12.5 million Africans, primarily from West Africa, the very regions where Hebrew refugees had settled a millennium earlier. They were brought by ships into bondage. They, EUA, were sold as slaves, and for 400 years no nation came to their aid. The prophecy was fulfilled with
Y'all
stunning
kill me
precision.
not wanting the truth out.
But here's where modern science confirms ancient prophecy in ways that will make your head spin. DNA research has identified a genetic marker called E1B1A, which geneticists have traced to ancient Hebrew populations. This haplogroup shows up in the highest concentrations in West Africa, particularly in Nigeria, Ghana, into bondage. They EUA were sold as slaves, and for 400 years no nation came to their aid. The prophecy was fulfilled with stunning precision. But here's where modern science confirms ancient
They don't want us
prophecy
to know that
in ways
DNA,
that will make
baby.
your head spin.
Ooh, Emmanuel don't want
DNA
us to know
researchers
that
identified a
DNA.
genetic marker called E1B1A, which geneticists have traced to ancient Hebrew populations. This haplogroup shows up in the highest concentrations in West Africa, particularly in Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, and Benin, the same regions where Hebrew refugees settled. The same regions most affected by the slave trade. Studies show that a significant percentage of African Americans carry this genetic marker. We're not talking about small percentages. We're talking about substantial genetic evidence linking African Americans to ancient Hebrew bloodlines. The science is backing up the prophecy. The DNA is confirming what the scriptures declare.
So forget what Emmanuel Oshadada Dudu saying. Scientific evidence says otherwise. Yes, let's go. Dudu.
Declared thousands of years ago. Now, does this mean every single African American carries Hebrew DNA? Of course not. Populations mix, genetics vary, and ancestry is complex. But the concentrations are too significant to ignore, too consistent to dismiss, and too aligned with biblical prophecy to be coincidental. But if this evidence is so clear, if the science is so compelling, if the biblical descriptions are so obvious, then why haven't we been taught this truth? Why has this knowledge been hidden? The answer will make you angry, but it will also set you free. Can you handle the truth about the systematic deception that's been perpetrated against entire populations for centuries? The deception began with something called slave Bibles. These were edited versions of scripture given to enslaved Africans that deliberately removed the book of Exodus. Think about that for a moment.
Think about it.
They removed the story of God delivering his people from slavery because they didn't want enslaved people to identify with Hebrew liberation.
Right.
They removed many of the Psalms because they didn't want enslaved people singing the songs of their ancestors. European artists systematically reimagined biblical figures as European. Every depiction of Jesus, Moses, David, and the apostles was whitewashed. Museums today are filled with European interpretations of Middle Eastern and African biblical characters. This wasn't accidental. This was systematic cultural and spiritual theft.
Characters. Theft.
Think about that for a moment. They removed the story of God delivering his people from slavery because they didn't want enslaved people to identify with Hebrew liberation. They removed many of the Psalms because they didn't want enslaved people singing the songs of their ancestors. European artists systematically reimagined biblical figures as European. Every depiction of Jesus, Moses, David, and the apostles was whitewashed. Museums today are filled with European interpretations of Middle Eastern and African biblical characters. This wasn't accidental. This was systematic cultural and spiritual theft. But the mental colonization went deeper than just visual representation. Christianity itself was weaponized as a control mechanism. Enslaved Africans were told that their ancestral spiritual practices were demonic, that their connection to the divine
Just
through
lying.
African traditions was evil, that they had to choose between their heritage and their salvation. This created a false dichotomy that persists today. Many African Americans feel they must reject everything African to be authentically Christian, while many others feel they must reject Christianity to embrace their African heritage. Both positions are based on the lie that these identities are incompatible. The truth is that Jesus walked among African spiritual traditions long before European colonizers ever set foot on the continent. The truth is that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was being worshipped in Africa under names like Oludum Gaga, Nyame, and Nzambi long before missionaries arrived. The truth is that you don't have to choose between your ancestors and your Christ, because Christ is your ancestor. But here's what will really
Say
blow
that
your
for us
mind.
one more time for the
While
ones
this
who don't want us to know the
Gaga,
truth.
Nyame, and Nzambi long before missionaries arrived. The truth is that you don't have to choose between your ancestors and your Christ, because Christ is your ancestor. But here's what will really blow your mind.
Glory.
While this systematic erasure was happening, ancient African civilizations were building empires that rivaled anything in Europe. The Kingdom of Kush produced black pharaohs who ruled Egypt. The Empire of Mali Intake controlled trade routes and accumulated wealth that made European kingdoms look impoverished. Mansa Musa's pilgrimage to Mecca was so lavish that he crashed the gold market in Cairo for a decade. Timbuktu was a center of learning with universities that attracted scholars from around the world. The Library of Alexandria was an African institution. The bronze work of Benin demonstrated metallurgical skills that wouldn't be matched in Europe for centuries. Great Zimbabwe built architectural marvels without European influence or technology, but colonial powers systematically destroyed these achievements, stole artifacts that now fill European museums, and rewrote history to minimize African contributions to human civilization. They couldn't allow colonized peoples to know about their glorious past because that knowledge would have made colonization impossible. Meanwhile, in the highlands of Ethiopia, something demonstrated metallurgical skills that wouldn't be matched in Europe for centuries. Great Zimbabwe built architectural marvels without European influence or technology, but colonial powers systematically destroyed these achievements, stole artifacts that now fill European museums, and rewrote history to minimize African contributions to human civilization. They couldn't allow colonized peoples to know about their glorious past because that knowledge would have made colonization impossible. Meanwhile, in the highlands of Ethiopia, something remarkable was happening. Unlike the rest of Africa, Ethiopia was never successfully colonized. And in Ethiopia, ancient Hebrew Christianity was being preserved in its original form. Ethiopian Christians have maintained an 88-book Bible compared to the 66 books in Western Bibles. They've preserved the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and other ancient texts that were excluded from European Bibles. Ethiopian manuscripts show Jesus with African features because that's how he actually looked. Ethiopian Christianity maintains practices that trace directly back to Hebrew tradition because that's where they came from. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church claims direct descent from the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon, and their DNA evidence supports this claim. In Ge'ez, the ancient Ethiopian language, we find the phrase Beta Israel, meaning House of Israel. Ethiopian Jews, call it Beta Israel or Falasha, have maintained Hebrew traditions for over 2,000 years in isolation from other Jewish communities. Their traditions include practices found nowhere else in Judaism, but that align perfectly with ancient Hebrew customs described in Scripture. So when we look at the evidence, when we examine the DNA, when we study the prophecies, when we trace the migrations, a picture emerges that's been hidden from us for centuries. The people who were torn from West Africa and brought to the Americas weren't just any people. They were the scattered descendants of the biblical Hebrews who had fled south after the destruction of Jerusalem. But here's what's beautiful about this truth. This isn't about division. This isn't about separation. This is about recognition. This is about prophecy being fulfilled. This is about scattered sheep being gathered. In Ezekiel chapter 37, God promises to gather his people from among the nations where they were scattered. In Romans chapter 11, Paul talks about the natural branches being grafted back into their own olive tree. The Hebrew word for this gathering is kibbutz, which means collection or ingathering. But in the spiritual sense, it's about restoration of identity, restoration of purpose, restoration of covenant relationship with the Almighty. Peter calls believers a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people in 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 9. When African Americans discover their Hebrew heritage, they're not claiming special status over other people. They're recognizing their role in God's plan for all humanity, because through Abraham's seed, all nations of the earth were to be blessed. This truth doesn't diminish anyone else's relationship with God. It doesn't create hierarchy or division. Instead, it completes the picture. It shows how God has been working.
So let's be clear. I am not going to debate the truth with nobody. If you do not like what I am presenting, leave. No comment needed. I'm not going to debate it with you. What makes you think I think you are a scholar? What makes you think that I'm going to believe what you say over DNA? I've been here longer than you. I know that there are missing books of the Bible. So please don't try to challenge me. Do your own research. Accept the fact that a lot of lies and manipulation has went forth. But even with those missing books of the Bible, it still describes Christ's feet of bronze. The color ain't white, it's black. Accept that fact. Okay? Now, if y'all insist on coming in trolling, I'm going to remove the comments and just no commenting at all. Respect the platform. Hit the like button, especially if you're going to try to put a comment. Do not comment in my comment section without hitting the like button. Okay? Now, I know the truth is hurting your feelings. I know the truth is hurting your feelings. Get over it. Y'all are not chosen. Okay? So I'm going to back it up. Since you wanted to interrupt, I'm going to back it up. Yeah, let's go.
Other people. They're recognizing their role in God's plan for all humanity, because through Abraham's seed, all nations of the earth were to be blessed. This truth doesn't diminish anyone else's relationship with God. It doesn't create hierarchy or division.
You see, you see what they're saying? It ain't trying to put nobody in no better position. The fact is the facts.
It completes
it's
the
our
picture.
DNA, not yours.
It
Hey,
shows
Desire
how
and
God has
Fire.
been working throughout history to preserve his people, to maintain his covenant, and to fulfill his promises despite human attempts to thwart his plan. When you understand that many African Americans are walking,
The
breathing,
DNA
living fulfillments of biblical prophecy,
of
everything changes.
Hebrews.
Your identity changes. Your purpose changes. Your understanding of history changes. Your relationship with God changes. You begin to understand that the spirituals weren't just songs of hope. They were songs of memory. When enslaved Africans sang about Moses and the promised land, they were singing about their own history. When they cried out to God for deliverance, they were calling on the God of their fathers who had delivered before and would deliver again. You begin to understand that the resilience, the faith, the unshakable belief in ultimate justice that characterizes African American culture isn't just admirable, it's divinely ordained. It's the fulfillment of God's promise in Isaiah chapter 54, verse 17. No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper. You
None.
begin to understand that the preservation of family despite slavery, the maintenance of spiritual traditions despite persecution, the pursuit of education despite systemic barriers, these aren't just human achievements. These are divine interventions. These are God keeping his covenant with a people who never stopped being his people, even when they forgot who they were. But with this knowledge comes responsibility. As it says in Luke chapter 12, verse 48, "For unto whomsoever much is given of him shall be much required." Understanding your Hebrew heritage isn't about claiming privilege, it's about accepting purpose. It's about recognizing that you've been preserved for such a time as this. The question isn't whether you have Hebrew DNA. The question is what you're going to do with this knowledge. Are you going to continue living under the deception that's been imposed upon you? Are you going to keep accepting second-hand spirituality filtered through the lens of your oppressors? Or are you going to reclaim your birthright, your identity, your covenant relationship with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? This isn't about rejecting other people. This isn't about creating new forms of racism or exclusion. This is about fulfilling Isaiah chapter 49, verse 6, where God says, "I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth." This is about becoming who you were always meant to be, so you can serve the purpose you were always meant to serve. The Ethiopian word for this awakening is tewahedo, which means unity. Unity with your true identity. Unity with your divine purpose. Unity with your ancestral heritage. Unity with your God. In Hebrew, we say, Baruch haba, blessed is he who comes. And that's what this is about. The return, the recognition, the awakening, the homecoming. But don't think this awakening is without opposition. Every time God's people begin to remember who they are, forces arise to keep them confused, divided, and powerless.
Confused.
That's why this message is being shared now.
They want us
That's why this
confused.
truth is being revealed.
That's the root. They want us confused. They want to continue. You know, that's why they send the little minions over here, the little trolls that they pay to come in and try to deflect and divide. They want us to remain confused to the truth. So when we wonder why did it happen, why did they want to confuse the truth? Okay, let's be clear.
He who comes, and that's what this is about. The return, the recognition, the awakening, the homecoming. But don't think this awakening is without opposition. Every time God's people begin to remember who they are, forces arise to keep them confused, divided, and powerless. That's why this message is being shared now. That's why this truth is being revealed at this moment in history. We're living in the time of what the prophet Joel called the outpouring of God's Spirit on all flesh. We're seeing the fulfillment of Jesus' words in Matthew chapter 24, verse 31. "And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other." The gathering has begun. The awakening is happening. The question is whether you're going to be part of it or continue living under the deception that's kept God's people scattered and confused for centuries. Your ancestors survived the Middle Passage. They survived slavery. They survived Jim Crow. They survived lynching. They survived systematic oppression. They survived so you could be here at this moment, receiving this revelation, understanding this truth. The DNA evidence is undeniable. The biblical prophecies are being fulfilled. The historical connections are documented. The spiritual awakening is happening. What lies buried in your family history? What lies buried in your genetic code? What lies buried in your spiritual DNA? This is your exodus. This is your return. This is your inheritance. Not inheritance of land necessarily, though that may come. Not inheritance of wealth necessarily, though that may come. But inheritance of identity, inheritance of purpose, inheritance of covenant relationship with the God who never forgot you, even when you forgot yourself. The prophet Hosea said in chapter 1 verse 10, "Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass, that in the place where it was said unto them, Ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, Ye are the sons of the living God." In the very places where you were told you were not God's people, you're being told you are the sons and daughters of the living God. In the very lands where you were brought as slaves, you're being revealed as the chosen people. In the very situations where you were oppressed, you're being prepared for your divine purpose. This truth doesn't make you better than anyone else. It makes you responsible to everyone else. This truth doesn't give you license to hate or exclude. It gives you mandate to love and include. This truth doesn't separate you from humanity. It connects you to your role in blessing all humanity. As Abraham was told in Genesis chapter 12 verse 3, "And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed." This promise wasn't just for Abraham, it was for his seed. And if you carry that seed, if you carry that DNA, if you carry that heritage, then you carry that responsibility. The time of hiding is over, the time of shame is over, the time of confusion over. The time of spiritual colonization is over. This is the time of revelation. This is the time of restoration. You don't have to convert to anything. You don't have to reject anyone. You don't have to join any movement or organization. You just have to remember. You just have to reclaim. You just have to return to who you've always been. In Hebrew, the word for return is teshuvah. It means repentance, but not in the way most people understand repentance. It means turning around. It means going back to your original position. It means returning to your true self. That's what this message is about. Your teshuvah, your return, your homecoming. The chains around your ancestors' bodies have been broken for generations, but the chains around your mind, the chains around your identity, the chains around your spiritual understanding, those chains are being broken right now. Today, in this moment. You are not the descendants of slaves. You are not the products of tragedy. You are the fulfillment of prophecy. You are the descendants of kings and priests. You are the chosen people of the Most High God. This is your wake-up call. This is your moment of truth. This is your spiritual exodus. Tell us what you think in the comments. Share this revelation with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to stay connected to truth that can't be stopped. And most importantly, begin the journey of discovering who you really are. Because the truth will set you free. And the truth is that you are fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God, carrying the DNA of covenant, walking in the footsteps of your ancestors who never stopped believing that God would remember his...
Don't let joint pain from aging slow you down. Try Omega XL and see the difference it can make in your life. A one-of-a-kind, natural, powerful joint relief supplement created from the green lip mussels of New Zealand. Drug-free, non-habit forming. It's small, easy to swallow, and it's backed by more...
What if I told you that the greatest deception in human history wasn't about money, wasn't about power, but was about identity itself? What if the...
That DNA ain't no joke, baby. That DNA got him in here. Let's go to the biblical destiny of Gaza. What's the Gaza? Let's go here.
It feels carved into bedrock. Gaza.
The Lord and storyteller.
Bombed, burned, betrayed. Gaza bleeds again. Headlines scream. Rockets roar and families run for shelter as history repeats with brutal force. A land no bigger than a city suddenly shakes the whole world. For 3,000 years, Gaza has been crushed, rebuilt, and crushed again. Pharaohs, Assyrians, Romans, Crusaders. Every empire has trampled its walls. And today, Hamas rules with an iron fist. Israel strikes with fire, and millions are trapped between rubble and despair. But beneath the dust lies something deeper prophecy that declared this fate long before our time. What if every explosion we watch is not a coincidence, but a warning echoing from ancient voices? What if the ruin, the ashes, the death of its leaders were all written centuries ago? Picture Gaza's story, not as random chaos, but as destiny, marching toward a shocking, inevitable end. Stay with us as we unseal the prophecies, connect them to today's headlines, and reveal the chilling truth of Gaza's biblical destiny. Before we begin, tell us in the comments if you believe prophecy is unfolding today. Then don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss what comes next. The biblical destiny of Gaza. Was the Gaza and Israel prophecy fulfilled today? Was the biblical destiny of Gaza, the Gaza and Israel prophecy, fulfilled today? It begins with a name so old, it feels carved into bedrock. Gaza Azza in Hebrew. Strong fortress, a city of might, has worn that meaning, like armor for millennia. Does a name shape a city's fate? Or does the city grow into the name it was given? From the start, Gaza was no backwater. It sat like a hinge between worlds.
That was scary.
A stone gate on the land bridge that funnels caravans from Egypt toward the valleys of Mesopotamia. Control the gate, and you tax the spice, the
Yeah, I'm gonna have to come back to that one a little later. I'm gonna have to research that myself. Check that out. But before, what is this? I just saw something. Before I go, I gotta go eat. I gotta go eat. Let's go. What? Let me hear here.
Well, consistency is not exactly Donald Trump's thing. And so Donald Trump has more than one way of expressing how, say, terrified he is. He might fly into obsessive, relentless social media postings about the thing he's terrified about. Sometimes he'll do it about the thing he's terrified about, and sometimes not. Sometimes about, like, anything else, which is kind of what he's been doing. And the other way Donald Trump communicates his fear is silence, which is also what he's been doing. That's how Donald Trump treats the things he's most afraid of, in my observation. And so, judging by his silence, Donald Trump is living in abject terror tonight of the Epstein files.
Again.
Donald Trump spent the day in silence today about the Epstein files. The man who loves to have the
He been
cameras
quiet.
aimed at him while he plays with questions from reporters without ever actually answering them, didn't dare allow reporters to get anywhere near him today at the White House. Donald Trump said nothing on social media today about the Epstein files. Nothing about the person who for 15 years Donald Trump called a terrific guy, while the person Donald Trump thought was a terrific guy was raping children. The last time Donald Trump said anything about his now dead friend Jeffrey Epstein was on Saturday at 9:13 a.m. when he said nothing will be good enough. Donald Trump said, "I have asked the Justice Department to release all grand jury testimony with respect to Jeffrey Epstein, subject only to court approval." With that being said, and even if the court gave its full and unwavering approval, nothing will be good enough for the troublemakers and radical left lunatics making the request. It will always be more and more and more. One of those radical left lunatics, I guess,
It's Donald Trump.
is Marjorie Taylor Greene,
Oh, well,
according to
yeah.
Donald Trump's description. She's always been called a radical lunatic, but she is a Republican member of Congress who's always supported Donald Trump and built her short political career on supporting Donald Trump. Today, Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted, "If you tell the base of people who support you of deep state treasonous crimes, election interference, blackmail, and rich, powerful, elite, evil cabals, then you must take down every enemy of the people. If not, the base will turn and there's no going back. Dangling bits of red meat no longer satisfies. They want the whole steak dinner and will accept nothing else." Marjorie Taylor Greene is making it very clear what would be good enough for her. She wants the entirety of the Epstein files released.
Release.
Not just the grand jury transcripts, which would be the least informative part of the Trump Justice Department's criminal investigative file on Jeffrey Epstein. While some Trump supporters who were complaining about Donald Trump's refusal to release the Epstein files last week are now going quiet, Marjorie Taylor Greene hasn't given up yet. She said this tonight at 7:06 p.m.
I believe in transparency, and I believe the American people, this is a serious issue. I can tell you for the past, more than a week, the highest volume of calls into my office have been about Epstein. People want the information. They don't want things covered up, especially when it comes to the most well-known convicted pedophile in modern day history. It's important to them, and they really want the information out.
We sure do.
Greene is a radical left lunatic, and everyone she claims is calling her Georgia office, all of them, radical left lunatics. And that nothing will be good enough for those Republican radical left lunatics. Donald Trump's silence about Jeffrey Epstein now extends, as it always does, to his complete silence about Jeffrey Epstein's victims. One of them was a high school girl who felt very lucky when she got a job working for Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. And that was the worst lucky moment she ever had. Because when she was working in the spa as an assistant at Mar-a-Lago, she met Donald Trump's friend, Ghislaine Maxwell, who then lured her to Jeffrey Epstein's Florida home, where she was raped by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell at the same time. The very first time that she was there. Donald Trump has never spoken a word of sympathy for that girl who used to work for him.
Not one
Donald Trump
time.
has never spoken a word of sympathy for that girl whose life was ruined.
Not one time has Donald Trump shown any empathy for the victims. Not one time.
When Jeffrey Epstein's criminal co-conspirator recruiter walked into Donald Trump's spa that day, Ghislaine Maxwell is serving
And
a
he
20-year
pimped her out.
prison sentence
Sold
right
her.
now for, among other things, recruiting that girl, sex trafficking that girl. Donald Trump has twice said in interviews, after Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted as Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator in sex trafficking, that he wishes her well. Quote, "I just wish her well." Donald Trump has said that repeatedly about her. Donald Trump can't think of a negative thing to say about the woman who is in prison tonight because she lured those girls into Jeffrey Epstein's home, onto
Absolutely.
Jeffrey Epstein's plane, to Jeffrey Epstein's island.
Hey, Mrs.
Ghislaine
Tom.
Maxwell did not testify in her own defense at her trial. She did not speak a word. Ghislaine Maxwell is appealing her conviction, as every criminal defendant with money always does.
Absolutely.
Very few of those appeals ever succeed. But if her appeal does not succeed, her only hope of getting out of prison is a pardon from Donald Trump. And Donald Trump has abused the pardon power beyond the wildest dreams of any other president, and certainly beyond the wildest nightmares of the authors of the constitutional power to pardon granted in absolute terms to the president by those framers of the Constitution, who would be horrified to see that Donald Trump used that power to pardon every single person who participated in an insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th to try to overturn the results of a presidential election for Donald Trump. Ghislaine Maxwell has been absolutely silent about what she knows about Donald Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. Jeffrey Epstein himself, before he killed himself, and before he was in prison, Jeffrey Epstein, in 2017, in a tape-recorded interview, said, "I was Donald's closest friend for 10 years. Surely Jeffrey Epstein discussed Donald Trump with his criminal co-conspirator, but she has never said a word about what she knows about Donald Trump."
That's a couple right there.
The Epstein files might have reports from FBI agents who
They were a
interviewed
couple
other people
for a
who
year.
might have heard Ghislaine Maxwell tell them something about Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. That's the kind of thing that could be in the Epstein files. Might not be admissible in court, but it could be in the investigative files. We know that the only person in the world who Donald Trump actually feels protective of is Donald Trump. And so the only person in the world he would be willing to extend himself to protect in the Epstein files would presumably be himself, Donald Trump. Donald Trump's place in the Epstein files might be completely innocent. It's possible. It might simply include press clippings that FBI agents probably have in their files of Donald Trump praising Jeffrey Epstein. The Epstein files surely somewhere there has a copy of the 2002 New York Magazine profile of Jeffrey Epstein, in which Donald Trump says, "I've known Jeff for 15 years, terrific guy, he's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it, Jeffrey enjoys his social life." That's the kind of thing that appears in FBI investigative files. Donald Trump's public dating history does not include underage girls, but truly weirdly and perversely, in 2006, the year Jeffrey Epstein was first charged with sex trafficking, Donald Trump said something very, very strange when he was asked on Howard Stern's radio show about the ages of women.
Do you think you could now be banging 24-year-olds?
Oh, absolutely. I have no trouble.
Would you do it?
I have no problem.
Yeah, do you have an age limit, or would you?
No, I have no age. I mean, I have an age. I don't want to be
The
like
upper bracket,
Congressman
yeah.
Foley with 12-year-olds.
I don't. I do, but I don't. Yeah, but
Donald
not
Trump was
10,
60
line
years
18, 12. Did he stutter?
60 years old. No problem. 60 years old. Donald Trump was 60 years old.
No. That's stutter.
Yeah, do you have an age limit, or would you?
No, I have no age. I mean, I have an age. I don't want to be
The
like
upper bracket,
Congressman
yeah.
Foley with 12-year-olds.
Wow.
Donald Trump was 60 years old.
Thank you, Naturally Norland.
60 years
12.
old. No problem with 24-year-olds. He was 60 years old when you just heard him say he would not want to be involved with a 12-year-old. And of course, Donald Trump is the only president of the United States in history who has publicly discussed anything like that. One count in Donald Trump's new lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal, claims specific defamation because the Wall Street Journal article described Donald Trump as being a friend of Jeffrey Epstein. The article also described a birthday letter that bears Donald Trump's name to Jeffrey Epstein on Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday. And the lawsuit that Donald Trump filed the very next day, which he is very unlikely to ever pursue beyond just that filing, because it would force him to testify under oath about Jeffrey Epstein. That lawsuit of Donald Trump's claims that it is defamatory, Jeffrey Epstein. The article also described a birthday letter that bears Donald Trump's name to Jeffrey Epstein on Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday. And the lawsuit that Donald Trump filed the very next day, which he is very unlikely to ever pursue beyond just that filing, because it would force him to testify under oath about Jeffrey Epstein. That lawsuit of Donald Trump's claims that it is defamatory to say that Donald Trump was a friend of Jeffrey Epstein's. That's what that lawsuit said on Friday. And the very next day, Saturday, the New York Times published a massive article under the headline, "Inside the Long Friendship Between Trump and Epstein." That's how absurd the Donald Trump lawsuit is against the Wall Street Journal. Donald Trump is not suing the New York Times for saying he had a long friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. And the Trump lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal says it's defamatory to say that he was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. That New York Times headline proves to you how absurd the Trump lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal is, and the Trump lawsuit will go nowhere because Donald Trump will not dare to pursue that lawsuit. Donald Trump will not force himself to go under oath
Nope.
testifying about his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, because that's what the Donald Trump lawsuit would force Donald Trump to do. Rupert Murdoch, who Donald Trump is suing, can force Donald Trump to give a videotape deposition under oath with unlimited questions.
Well, Wolf is going to do it.
Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, and that's never going to happen.
Wolf is going to do it.
All right, this feels almost illegal to know, but our windows were so old.
Wolf is
and just
going to,
desperately
Michael
needed to
Wolf
be
is going
replaced.
to do it.
The Trump lawsuit was a one-day stunt, just to try to trick the news media, and it tricked a lot of the news media, and tricked Donald Trump's followers into thinking that Donald Trump was actually taking some kind of action against the Wall Street Journal. Senator Dick Durbin, the top Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee with jurisdiction over the Justice Department, sent a letter to the Justice Department saying, according to information my office received, you pressured the FBI to put approximately 1,000 personnel in its information management division, including the Record Information Dissemination Section, which handles all requests
Wasting
submitted by the
taxpayer
public under the
time and
Freedom
money.
of Information Act, and Privacy Act on 24-hour shifts.
All he has done
to
is
review
waste our time and money
100,000 Epstein-related records in order to produce
and
more
stunt our growth.
documents that could be that could then be released on an arbitrary short deadline. This effort, which reportedly took place from March 14th through the end of March, was haphazardly supplemented by hundreds of FBI New York field office personnel, many of whom lacked the expertise to identify statutorily protected information regarding child victims and child witnesses or properly handle FOIA requests. My office was told that these personnel were instructed to flag any records in which President Trump was mentioned. The letter asks Attorney General Pam Bondi several questions, including, have you personally reviewed all files in DOJ's possession related to Jeffrey Epstein? And who made the decision to assign hundreds of New York field office personnel to this March review of Epstein-related...
Donald Trump's silence is not strategy, it's fear. A man who built his entire public identity on never shutting up, on raging, mocking, attacking, spinning, dominating the spotlight, has suddenly gone mute. And that silence is louder than any of his rants, because Trump doesn't go quiet unless he's cornered. He doesn't hide unless there's something behind that door he can't explain away. Can't tweet away, can't sue away. And this time that something has a name. It's called the Epstein Files. Trump can pretend it's about radical lunatics or deep state troublemakers. He can project, deflect, and invent 1,000 enemies. But when even his most loyal foot soldiers, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, start turning on him, demanding the truth, the illusion cracks. Because they see it too. They see the panic behind his silence. They see that the...
They see that the what? They see that the end is possibly near.
This man, who used to call Epstein a terrific guy, who publicly wished Ghislaine Maxwell well after her conviction for trafficking girls, is terrified of what her name and those files might reveal about him. Those files might reveal about him. The American people are not stupid. They know a cover-up when they see one.
Absolutely.
This is not about partisan warfare anymore. This is about the rot at the center of power. The arrogance of men who thought money and fame could make them untouchable.
Hold up, let's hear this right quick before I have to go and I forget.
Trump is the Hitler of our time! Free DC! Free Palestine! Trump is the Hitler of our time! Free DC! Free Palestine! Trump is the Hitler of our time! Free DC! Free Palestine! Trump is the Hitler of our time!
Did he get an attitude? Trump is the Hitler of our time. Free DC, free Palestine. Trump is the Hitler of our time. Woo! Okay. Woo, that was funny, wasn't it? Free DC, free Palestine. Trump is the Hitler of our time. See?
Treated victims like collateral damage and justice like a joke. It's about a country that's been told to forget, to move on, to let the rich rewrite history while survivors live with the memories they created. It's about a Justice Department that's been pressured, a Senate demanding answers, and a nation that deserves the truth. All of it, every last page. Donald Trump can keep pretending that silence is strength. He can keep filing frivolous lawsuits he'll never dare to see through. But history has already made its verdict clear. No one who hides from the truth stays hidden forever. The Epstein files will outlast every lie. The victim's story...
The what?
Will outshine every PR stunt. And when the truth finally breaks through, when the full record of who enabled Epstein, who partied with him, who stayed silent, becomes public, no wall of wealth or power will be high enough to protect the guilty.
And who let him escaped to Israel. Yeah. Who allowed him to, excuse me, act like he unalived himself in a jail cell. Yeah, once all of that comes out and they realize that he has escaped to Israel on probably Air Force One. Hell, where is Lolita Express? Where is that at? Yeah. Once all that come out, oh, it's gonna be a sad day in the USA, baby. And for all them MAGA people and all of them other people who were co-conspirators with this human trafficking, baby, it's gonna be ugly. Let's go.
Party with him who stayed silent becomes public. No wall of wealth or power will be high enough to protect the guilty. So let him stay silent. Let him stew in that fear he's earned. Because silence doesn't stop justice, it amplifies it. The louder his silence gets, the closer we are to the reckoning he dreads. And whether it comes from Congress, the courts, or the collective conscience of a nation that's had enough of predators in power, that reckoning will come.
Predators in power. I like that. Predators in power. That's exactly what it is. Predators in power. That's who Donald Trump is protecting. The predators in power. It's a whole bunch of predators in power, and you are in place to protect them. But it's almost over. Okay, y'all, I'll be back later. I gotta go, but I will be back.